Hey, hey, how we doing today? Ready for another cup of Snake Island coffee? So I was wondering, what was I going to talk about today? Had a nice little break yesterday. It was snowing like crazy. So it's beautiful outside. And there'll probably be some cross-country skiing and snow machining very soon. But what am I going to talk about today? Because we've been talking about a lot of stuff. And I find it interesting that when you look at a lot of the reality shows and they involve animals, i.e. like Life Below Zero, Treasure Quest, Snake Island, it's dual survival, it's man against the beast, and overcoming the trials and tribulations. And then it brings the questions of how many of those trials and tribulations are actually true. But the thing that always gets me of late is that I've been seeing a lot of animals who have gone through some suffering that I don't think should have gone through some suffering. And I hunt, I fish, but I do my best to make sure that when I make that shot, it's a one-shot kill. I don't go around and cripple these animals. And I'll give you an example of that. Remember the hailstones on National Geographic's Life Below Zero? Have you ever wondered why is it that they shoot a lot of animals and then they keep on shooting at all these animals? And you kind of wonder, for someone who's like lived out in the country, all their life, why do they use equipment that they use? I.e., the Mosin Nagant is the patriarch of the hailstones. That's his favorite weapon he loves so much. Well, it's one thing if you're a Russian sniper, at Stalingrad, and you've got a scope on top. It's another when you're shooting open sights. I can't even shoot the way I used to with open sights. And that's one of the reasons that I actually either prefer to do a peep sight. If I'm shooting, Skinner sights are a good selection for having on my Winchester 1886 45-70 that I use up here. Or normally, I use a bolt action with a nice scope on it with a really good reticle. And I make a choice on reticles for a very good reason based on how can I use it most effectively. And if you practice and you train, there are shots that people think are just impossible, but you can do very effectively, but if you train. And that's the thing I don't get. It's just like Hailstone, there was kept a secret that he was actually a felon, and that was the reason you don't see him with a modern firearm, and he has to run around with a muzzle-loading shotgun, and he's trying to take a muskox with a muzzle-loading shotgun, which I was floored by. But finally, when he gets his permission and he got his release to be able to use modern firearms, he goes off with the daughter and they go on a caribou hunt. Did anybody pay attention to that caribou that he finishes off and shoots, and it's like laying there in the snow, and you get the assumption based on how they're trying to make it look to you that he was basically just, we came up on it and we found it, we shot it. Instead of, no, that animal was crippled, it laid down, and they went and got to it, and then they finished it off. And that's the scene that you actually see in that episode. And the way you can tell, he actually shot it a bit far back, is watch when they start working on the animal, and they're going to start gutting it. You'll notice that there's a lot of blood on the hind foot of that caribou. So that doesn't jive with someone who's been living up in the woods and trying to make sure that he gets his meat home, because you don't want to tear up your meat, you don't want to put a bunch of bullet holes through it, you don't want to get it all bloodshot, but yet that's what we see. Then let's get over to Treasure Quest. Remember all the animals we had on ours? Well, let's see. which is one that sticks in my mind as a start. Well, there's the snakes, and that's interesting because there was the real experiences we had, like that situation where I said, cut it out to Brian, because he basically was just trying to grab the snake. And as far as I'm concerned, man, snakes are meant to be just left alone, unless you're hungry or you like to eat rattlesnake. I actually like eating rattlesnake, and when I was in Asia, I enjoy eating cobra. You know, there's a really good Vietnamese cobra recipe with, I'd say, a Vietnamese cobra curry that you can get in Saigon. It's phenomenal, and it's a very sweet curry, and it makes the cobra delicious. But normally, I stay away from snakes because there's no reason for me to be around them. I mean, they have venom for a reason. So here's a situation where you've got animals in scenes, and they're often contrived in a horrific reasoning is to go off and shoot these caribou. And first of all, I hunt caribou too. But you know when I hunt them? I hunt them kind of like the Hymo does in the fall, in the early fall, late summer. Why? Because they've been feeding all summer, and there's a layer of fat. I mean, it's a nice layer of fat that appears on that caribou, and it's one of the healthiest things. And as you read more books, such as those by Dr. William Davis and by Dr. Grundy about like the plant paradox, you'll understand why fat is actually good for you. Animal fat is actually very good for you. And if you eat that instead of grain carbs, which was all based on the industry to sell grain, starting all the way back in the 50s when it really started to get going. But you could go all the way back to Dr. Kellogg. Remember Kellogg cereal? Yeah, he was the one who tried to make it this healthy diet. But what you don't get is that there were so many people who were getting sick off of that. But while we're talking, I wanted to work on this SIG, because remember I told you it came in, and the grips came in from Hogue too. So I'll show you those tomorrow. But today I was going to show you how to do. See, I was talking about sandpaper. So this is the skateboard paper that I think is the best, because it's actually got a real good grip on it, and it's the Mob Grip is the brand on it. Well, basically what you do is you just take a piece of the paper like that, and you overlay it on your grips, and you're just doing the sides, remember? So while I'm doing this, I will talk with you. So there's a scene with the snakes, you know, we're on the island, but a lot of that, we weren't on the island. And what they're doing is they're having us be true actors, which is like, oh my God, snake! Like, remember that time when I got, quote, stuck in a hole? Well, the reason I got stuck in a hole is because I got my pack wedged on top of me. And they tried to make it look like, oh God, Cork is just too big and he can't get through that hole. And oh my God, there's a snake right in front of him. So there's a snake right in front of me. Well, that audio was recorded 1 or 2 months after we got back from Snake Island. So think about that. That's called a what do they call them? Yeah, wild line. So it's a wild line. That's where you basically just say something like, "Oh my God," or like, "Oh, it's a snake," and then it's recorded, and then it's laid over on the track for your video. Now, those of you who are watching are probably thinking, "Oh my God, Cork is gonna die out there." Yeah, and there was a time that I thought I was when we were actually on the island, but the rest of the time, I mean, think about the implications. Remember, when we were filming down in Brazil, there was that other Discovery show, which was like a bunch of French Olympians who had been gone down to, was it Argentina, or I think maybe it was Chile. It might have been Chile. It's in the news. If you just Google it, it'll come right up. And you got to think about that. It's like, what is it about programming now that they feel. Remember, I said this. It's like, so many people want to come to Alaska and find the adventure of Alaska. I mean, that's why all these shows up in Alaska are doing so well, because people have never really come out here and attempted it, but it's a fantasy. And then there's I could tell you some horrific stories of when it's not a fantasy anymore and people actually try to come up here and do it, but they do it based on a reality show. Yeah, think about that. How scary is that one, too? So, so there we are, with the snakes, and then there we are not with the snakes. For instance, the night scene that was shot, that wasn't shot on Snake Island. That was shot on Ilhabela, on a fazenda, or a farm that was right up there above the town of Ilhabela. So it's like we're going out in the evening, we're shooting these scenes. It's totally contrived, and yet it's being released as true documentary. How do you get away with that? Constantly. And they say, well, why isn't anybody talking? That's the thing about it. Why am I talking? I'm talking because I actually looked at my contract, and I think it's one of the worst banes of our society. I think it's what's creating this stupidity and the inability for people to think for themselves. More importantly, to actually investigate and research and go and look at things. That's actually what the reality TV industry, do you know what it banks on? It banks on the idea that you had a horrible day. You had a long day. You just want to get home. You want to take your mind away. You want to crack open a beer. You want to sit down in your lazy boy. You want to turn on the boob tube. And you just want to sit and absorb. Well, if you're being entertained, or like when I do that, I like to just watch animals. I'll turn and watch an animal show and just see some animals at peace, or just in the wild. Okay? I don't want to go and watch somebody who is on a show that I'm being told is a real show, it's a real documentary, and they're finding treasure. And we're not going to talk about that today, but we will be talking about the treasure. But I will set this in your mind. And that is, ask yourself, considering all the treasures that we found, or we supposedly found, where are they? Think about the importance of supposedly what we had found. Don't you think something as important as that would appear in a museum? Why is not anybody asking the question of, where is the treasure? Where are these treasures that are being, found? And I'm not just talking about Treasure Quest. Think about this. What about the Curse of Oak Island? What about Cooper's Treasure? And all of these shows, where are the treasures, the artifacts? These are real important finds. Anybody who is a archaeologist, a historian, somebody who works in a university, someone who works at the National Museum, where are these treasures? I'm waiting for them to appear because supposedly we found them on our show, but I'm not seeing them. Have you seen them? Yeah. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But let's go back to the animals. So then we had the snakes, okay? So they'll go and shoot a bunch of B-roll. You know what B-roll is? B-roll is kind of like filler roll that's being shot while the cast is doing something else. So normally B-roll will be like, the sky moving and then taking the drone up and shooting B-roll of the island and all that kind of stuff. So later it'll be spliced in, and then you've got the production. It's done in what is called post-production. Okay? So that's where the snakes come in. So when we were actually on that island in 2 days, all the snakes that you see that supposedly we had seen over, a supposed 3 months, quote, in the field? Yeah. That was just shot on 2 days with the B cam, that's the B cam, going off. And going off and shooting it while we're going off and doing other scenes, making it look like we're in this major adventure. So, okay, got that one over there. Coolio. Oh yeah. Now the thing about these is that there is adhesive on these on the skateboard paper, but you will notice that the edges and all that kind of stuff, you're going to have to hit it with crazy glue or some kind of adhesive later. See, now most guys, see, I'm right-handed, so I would be putting it on my left normally, but I actually do it on both sides, especially if I have to shoot with either hand. And also, I just like having gecko hands. I call them gecko hands, when you can just put your hand on a weapon and you can keep on staying in the fight. Now, okay, so that's one side. That's the side if I was actually a left-handed shooter. And I only wanted one side, but since I like to have both sides, I will now flip it over on the other side as we continue to talk. And it's 16 minutes. Okay. So, we had the snakes. And now let's go over to, let's see. Yeah, let's go over to, Argentina. We had a lot of animals in Argentina. I mean, shoot. And Argentina is truly a naturalist's dream. I mean, the things I've seen there were just amazing. Even in the jungles of Central America when I was in the war down there. I mean, I saw tapir, you know, and actually that's how we survived. I mean, it's one of the camps had to actually go out and get food. This is one of the Contra camps when we were providing assistance to the Contras for Uncle Reagan. So, and, you know, there's crocodiles and stuff like that, you know, like in the Caribbean side, especially in the Caribbean side of the jungle, the mangrove swamps, you know, in Nicaragua. Yeah, that's another bad place. But we had the caimans and the piranhas. You know, to this day, my dad used to tell me all the time, you know, before, because, did I tell you that I'm actually half Ecuadorian? Yeah, I'm half Ecuadorian. My mother was an immigrant to this country. So, legal. So before my dad met my mom, he had a contract working in Venezuela. This is in the early 60s. And so he'd tell me all about, oh yeah, we used to go in the river, you know, and that's how you would do it, is that you'd go and swim in the fast running water, and then when you wanted to grab some lunch, you just throw in a line with a chunk of little meat and you catch piranha in the slow moving water. Okay, so swim and bathe in the fast water and catch your fish in the slow water. Well, here we're in Argentina on Treasure Quest second season, and supposedly, you know, there was an attack, and it was reported that there was an attack of people on the beach, you know, because Argentines in that area, that's in northern Argentina, over there by the falls of Iguazu. Instead of going to the beach there means not going to the ocean. It means going to the river beach or the river shore, and so that's how these people got nailed. You know, and it was a hot day, but it was a freak occurrence. It's kind of wild that, you know, a channel that sells itself as the last true documentary network out there creates such fear about a type of fish or animals that is almost like the old Jungle Jim stories and cartoons from when we were kids, you know. But that's the key. That's what they're into, because that's Hollywood. That's not documentary. It's Hollywood. So there's the scene with Megan, and she's gonna jump in the water, and Jeremy's gonna go and throw blood in the water. There weren't any piranhas in that river. Well, they were, but who knows where they were? I have no idea. We tried to catch them. Shoot, Dave Carr, the showrunner That's what they call directors now. The showrunner tried to buy one from a fisherman and couldn't even find one. I mean, how sad is that? Okay. Then, my favorite is the Cayman scene because my buddy Smitty from Smitty Barbecue Sauce. We were out there deer hunting. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to tell you. Not only was it the hunt from hell, because 2 years ago, man, I had my freezer full. But I got charged by my first brown bear. And let me tell you, it's kind of like, wow. It's like being in a firefight where it's like, it just happens, but you're not into it yet. You're just like becoming aware of it. And then you're like, oh. But then automatically you react, the way you're trained, which is good. That's why you have training. So the training for the bear is, hey bear, hey bear. And the reason the bear was coming in is because I was using a deer call. I was trying to call in some blacktail, Sitka blacktail on the island, and that's actually one of the best ways to bring them in. What you're going to do is you're going to bring in a doe just by doing a lost fawn or a lost doe call. But instead, because the bears had not hibernated yet, it was a really bad crop of salmon berries for them this year, and the salmon run was not as good as it would have been to feed them, and then they would have been in hibernation. Not only that, the snow was like 2,000 feet, a lot higher than it was last time. The best time to hunt Kodiak is when the snow is down at the beach, unless you like to climb high alpine, and then you want to do it like in September, end of August. Well, the opener is the end of August, as I recall. Yeah. So yeah, that was my little story about getting charged with Smitty from Smitty's Beard Sauce, who was with me deer hunting on Kodiak a couple of weeks ago. And we were overstaying at my friend Joe McKenzie's Great Bear Adventures over there on Amok Island. But anyway, so we have the Cayman scene. And Smitty's asking me when we're on top of that hill after we humped all that freaking camera gear. God, I was so ticked off. We had humped all that camera gear, and I was going to go goat hunting, and he was going to go and shoot a deer. And then we got like halfway up there and said, we're not going to get up to the top of that mountain. With that, and we focused on deer. But the wild part about all this is that he's asking me, so what? You mean it's fake? It's fake? What are you talking about? I said, dude. And he said, what about the cayman? What about that alligator? Oh, you mean the cayman? Oh, the cayman. The infamous South American cayman. Yeah, well, that South American cayman was in a cayman farm. Like in Florida, where you can get, the Seminoles have a lot of alligator farms in the Everglades, and you see a Seminole doing the old gator wrestling show. Well, that's pretty much what you got when you're watching Megan, but she wasn't in the water with a cayman. There was Megan that you saw in the river where there were no cayman whatsoever. Then you've got a scene with Megan getting out of into the water. There's no cayman in that pond. And then you jump to another pond, because remember, they have tons of these things all over at the cayman farm. And there is an actual cayman, and it's a big cayman. Okay? And then you've got Jeremy jabbing the thing, just trying to get it to attack him. I mean, that's so that they could get the scene with the cayman, and then you've got Keith and Jeremy screaming, Megan, Cayman, watch out, get out! Ah! Yeah. Does that annoy you? It sure does me. But yeah, that's what happens when you have a network that sells the goods but doesn't deliver the goods. Because when I watch a documentary network, or a network that promises to be the last true documentary network out there, I expect to see at least a modicum of reality. And that's attention to science and attention to truth. So look at that. Isn't that nice? Man, your hands, you get gecko hands with that pistol when you got sandpaper. But like I say, the hoe grips came in, and I will be taking these grips off, and I will show you the hoe grips on. And those are really good too, because remember, the whole idea is to be able to hold this where you've got blood on your hands, you got mud on your hands, anything, you got oil on your hands. You want to be able to grip your weapon and keep fighting. But hey, let's go over to the Caymans. Remember, see the Caymans? See the Cayman right there? Remember the Cayman scene? Yeah, that's the Cayman scene. That's it right there. Yeah, that's on a Cayman farm. Okay, and oh, accuracy. Well, yeah, that's wild. See that one right there? I like that one. That's the one where they try to make me look like an idiot. And the reason they're trying to make me look like an idiot is they're getting ready to ditch me off the show. Okay? And it's because Jeremy is working his little Machiavellian, in my honest opinion, his Machiavellian strategies in order to get me off the show and then get him and Megan as the protagonists of Treasure Quest Snake Island. Yeah. And that explains kind of why I've got that shiner right there. Because he sucker punched me because he couldn't deal with the reality of the situation, which is you shouldn't take coke when you're in a scene and you have no emotional control. But yeah, this scene right here, yeah, so that was the one that I always wondered how many people actually recognize that if I actually had a pack full of kit, full of gear, do you think it would float all the way down that river so that Brett Tudor could do the Superman event, jumping into the water, into the waterfalls? You know how many times that shot was taken? That take was shot 3 times. He had to do it 3 times to go get that pack. And the only thing in that pack were inflated garbage bags to keep it afloat. All the gear that was supposedly in there was taken out and replaced with flotation in order for Brett to be able to find it. Yeah, that's reality TV. Oh, and the poor little animal. Remember the jaguar scene? The jaguar and the poor little brocket deer. You know what the brocket deer was? The brocket deer was a roadkill. And then our set doctor went to work with, see, there it is. It's in the bag, and we're shooting another scene through the bamboo. It's probably where Emilio and they're saying, "Did you hear that? It sounds like a jaguar. Jaguar. That's un jaguar." Oh my God. Yeah. Oh man, Freedom Day. You know the Freedom Bird? You ever heard of the Freedom Bird? That's when you're going out, you're going back home. Yeah. That's Freedom Day. I can't wait to get on my Freedom Bird, let me tell you. Oh, and that's my favorite. 200. Haven't we talked about that? Artifacts. Where are these artifacts? $250,000 valued. Yes. I wonder who was the one who did the estimate on that. I'm curious because I'd like to know where that artifact is. Because that's one of the artifacts that was actually developed, created by Sebastian Bale. It's actually the one that you see on the front cover right there. Right there. Yeah, that one right there. That one right there. That was in tea. That was made by Sebastian Bale out of a tin can and painted with gold paint. And the funny thing about that is that the primer, when Jeremy was sent in to place it in the waterfall, he had it in a diver's goodie bag. You know what a diver's goodie bag is? I don't know if you did a lot of abalone diving or anything, or you go picking up artifacts, you know, or anything, articles underwater. It's just a mesh bag. So Jeremy, it was an entertaining scene where Jeremy basically comes out of the water and sits on it. So when he sat on it, part of the gilding came off the primer. And that's part of the humor in that scene because we're all trying to cover that messed up detail so that the camera doesn't catch it. Because the director's like totally, Dave Carr's like, oh, what the hell? You can just see the anger seething. It's like, what the hell is that guy doing? I mean, Jesus. Oh, man. But yeah, Joe Boyle, man. This guy, very secretive guy, Joseph Boyle. He's the one who's the executive producer from Discovery Channel. And anything he's touched, I got a big question about. Because his background, he's full on Hollywood. Like full on Hollywood. So that means everything is scripted, everything is created. He has his hands on Cooper's treasure. And that brings another question. Where's all this treasure from Cooper's treasure? Where's all the treasure from Treasure Quest? Where's all the treasure from Curse of Oak Island? Where are these treasures? I mean, we should be setting up the museums in Canada, the museums in Brazil and Argentina. I mean, we supposedly found artifacts. What about in the Caribbean with Cooper's treasure? I'm waiting. It's kind of interesting, though. When I saw that anchor on Cooper's treasure, I can't say for a fact, but God, to me, in my honest opinion, it sure looks like it was the same anchor that we actually found as a real artifact off of Brazil that I talked about last. But anyway, on that note, I'll leave you to the evening, and I hope you have a wonderful night. And hey, if you want to shoot better on your handguns, remember, skateboard tape, skateboard paper, put it all over. You'll never lose your gun, especially when you don't want to lose your gun. But anyway, tomorrow, I'll show you when I put on the Hogues, the Piranha grips. Piranhas, oh my God. The only thing we ever saw were false piranhas on that show. Have a good night.